Hello, and welcome to another Conscious Conversation sponsored by the House of H. I'm Juno, your host, and today we have a wonderful guest. Welcome, Victor. How are you doing today, Victor?
Doing well. How are you?
I am fantastic. I just shoveled snow a little bit ago because I live in the Northeast and there is snow here right now. And you know what's funny? I used to hate snow when I was little. I mean, visually it was pretty, but I hated shoveling it. And I've gotten to a point where I don't mind it now. Uh, how is everything in your life? What's happening with you? Please introduce yourself to the people.
Well, my name is Victor. I'm an eclectic pagan raised in Florida, currently living in the Pacific Northwest. I was raised Roman Catholic until I got into paganism later on. And I'm basically just living my life here with my husband and cats.
We love husband and cats. So you are, even though you're from the Pacific, even though you live in the Pacific Northwest now, you don't get a ton of snow over there, do you? That's more like rain, right? Because of the down current.
So we get a lot of rain. Our wet season is typically like fall and winter. And when it does get cold in the winter, our area occasionally gets snow, but not as much as other areas. So like more north, and then other side of the Cascades from us, they get hit with so much snow. But like when we get snow, it like leaves within the same day, if not the following day.
Which is really all you need, honestly. It's just nice to see it on the ground for a little bit and then it can go
Yeah.
away, in my opinion. Uh, so, okay, I'm going to start with the question that I generally start with everyone, which is and you already kind of touched on it a little, saying you were brought up Roman Catholic, because same. When you were brought up as a child, right? What was your spiritual or religious belief, and uh, how did that feel for you as a queer person discovering yourself in that system?
Was it was interesting. It was different. As I mentioned earlier, I was raised Roman Catholic, and we weren't really, at least my mom wasn't as strict as the rest of my family was. So she kind of gave us more flexibility and stuff on what we could and couldn't do. But she did try to make sure that we tried to go to church and what have you. And it was just, there were some times that things were mentioned that just didn't agree with me, and it made me uncomfortable. I didn't know how to say it to my family. I didn't know how to say it to anyone else I was associating with. So I was like closeted until I was at least a senior in high school. I came out of two closets at the same time. I came out of the broom closet and I came out of the rainbow closet. So
You said Band-Aid off, all of it out, all
I
at
just like
once.
kicked that down and kept going.
So wait, question, because you said you were brought up Roman Catholic. How old are you now?
I'm 38.
Okay, so you experienced the 90s and the kind of queerness in that bracket. So I know if you graduated from high school, and you said you came out in 11th grade?
Senior year, so 12th grade. It was, yeah.
Senior year, so 12th grade, sorry. So, okay, so that means you definitely went through confirmation because that happens before that.
Yes.
Okay, so when you were receiving confirmation, were you given a choice or were you like, you have to do this? Because that was the story for me. I was told I had to get
I
confirmation.
did it actually, because I wanted to learn and just to say that I did it. Um, at the time,
That's fair.
I was doing it with my cousin, and her and I, we both went through confirmation together, and um, it was kind of almost like a rite of passage in the family. And they're like, "Oh, you got to do this because it's part of the church, and you have to be devout." Blah 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 blah. And I was like, "Okay." So I did that, and it was not long after that I was like, "Yeah, this isn't working."
So, question, because you said that it was more of like a cultural thing for you to receive confirmation and stuff like that. So, when you were growing up, because you also said you came out of the broom closet and the rainbow closet at the same time in 12th grade. So, at what point did you kind of realize along the way that not only was maybe who you were not congruent with the spiritual path you were on, but when were you able to articulate like this is the spiritual path that compels me?
So actually what had happened with me is like at around 14, 15, I started like dabbling with the idea of like new age religions and paganism in North America, and I just kind of kept that on the down low because I was still trying to figure things out, and I didn't realize it at the time what how much more there was outside of, you know, Catholicism. And so as I went through the years doing that, like in solace, I did my things that I had to do with the church. But the further I went with it, the more I was like, mm, this isn't really vibing with me. This other thing that I've been doing that I haven't been telling anybody about, that vibes with me more. Like, I, for some reason, even from a very young age, I idolized Mary and like put like a garden around her and roses and stuff like that, almost like, you know, you would look like a goddess or something.
I mean, it was Mary is the only way that we have access to the divine feminine in Catholicism, really, as a primary figure.
Mm. Oh, you're cutting out a little bit.
And I
I don't know if it's your internet
better.
or mine.
It looks like it looks like my signal is strong, but I know that
You,
it will continue to record on both
okay, yeah,
ends.
it continued. I can hear you now.
Okay. I'm going to go back for a second and say, well, Mary is very much like the only access to the divine feminine we have in Roman Catholic faith and tradition. And in many ways, she's the fracturing of the divine feminine, where there's like the birth of purity culture in many ways, and then there's the objectification of the divine feminine and the with Mary Magdalene and slut shaming and all that.
Right.
So when did you? I also think that the fact that you're more drawn to earth-based spiritualities and the fact that you're queer, it's just more divinely feminine in like aligned basically as a practice.
I definitely find that my personality and my orientation and my queerness have developed in a sense to embrace that sacred divinity, um more so than say the standard like macho man, if you will, because they affiliate, um they affiliate a lot of the ground the earth based and the spirituality and or paganism, they affiliate that with a lot of feminism, or that women are more inclined to do it than men. And I just kind of went with it, kind of like when they describe men can't show emotions or be in their feelings or whatever because it's, you know, because of society. Well, in that sense, I embraced it and I kind of went with it and I fell in love with it and I just did not stop. It was just, it was a creative outlet for me. It was a spiritual and mental outlet for me. I get to explore a lot because I took different courses and stuff as well, because I was so fascinated with it. And I ran with it and I just didn't look back.
So how did you first come into knowing earth-based spiritualities, paganism, all of that? Like what was the thing that was your gateway? Because it also sounds like you started relatively early.
Yeah, so what had happened is that a friend of mine was talking about certain things that he did in regards to candle magic. And I was like, well, that's interesting because we use candles in the church and blah, 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 blah. And he's like, yeah, no, but if you do colors and this and pray to this and that. And I'm like, huh? So we got to talking more about it.
You're like, wait. What do you mean? What do
Exactly.
you mean about this?
So, and then after that, I did some research, mostly with the library, and I would check out books, and I looked into Wicca at the time. And I think, I don't know if it's with a lot of people, but like that's like the starting point before, at least it was for me, it was the starting point before I delved into other forms of paganism. But I started with it because it was like a 101 for me. It had a little bit of everything. Um, and it was explaining things in a certain way to me. And that's what I was doing. I was doing everything for, with the books on Wicca, like undercover, if you will, while I was still with the church. And
Yeah.
my mom was
In the
in
sneak.
this, yeah, exactly. And my mom wasn't really like opposed to it or anything, but she was kind of concerned because she didn't want the other family figuring out or finding out whatever. So at that age, at that point, um it was Wicca before I discovered more religious like paths and stuff around college. And that's when I took other courses and stuff like anthropology and world religions and stuff like that.
I think Wicca also is a very easy kind of step out of Catholicism or Abrahamic faiths because the practice of Catholicism is secular and follows a very similar pattern to the Wheel of the Year and all of that stuff. So I think that in many ways, Wicca, because it is an organized religion sort of witchcraft and earth-based practices, I think it's an easy stepping stone for a lot of people who are very used to on this day we celebrate Christmas, on this day we celebrate Easter, on this day we celebrate X. Like it it follows a very similar format. And then I think it's a great way to then decide what works for you and branch out in that tradition. You know what I mean?
Mhm. Yeah, especially when I started it, I was looking at the Grecian pantheon and a little bit of the Egyptian. And so the fact that I was learning about different pantheons and stuff, and that's ultimately what led me to other paths later, was because it's like there are so many pantheons. Um, and I just like ran with it.
Greek and Egypt very much an influence for me as well for a very long time.
Yeah. Um, but yeah, that was basically, I mean, that was pretty much it. Like, and as you mentioned, it's, and it is a new age organized religion of paganism and witchcraft. So that was something that was basically the transition from one religion to another for me. And it was from that point on.
And then as you experienced more of these earth-based spiritual practices and stuff like that, where did you find your home in terms of your path? Because I know everyone kind of travels a different path when they get into the earth-based spiritual space, and I know for me, a lot of the gateway was tarot and candle magic and stuff like that, astrology. And so I ended up studying the Golden Dawn before going down kind of a whole different path with spirituality, but I learned a lot of my structural and ceremonial style magic from studying the Golden Dawn, which I didn't even get to until like probably 18, 17, 18 years into practicing magic. I was just very folk magic based. I just picked up different traditions along the way from practitioners that I met and they were like, "Oh, I do this and I do that." So I was very eclectic. And then I, through my deeper study of tarot, ended up finding the Golden Dawn, where I studied their system and then went, okay, that's great. I'm going to make my own now. So it was, I went into the deep structures of the Golden Dawn, and then I said, great, noted, and I'm going to go back to like being eclectic anyway, but just with this coloring book now. So, kind of, what was your journey through traditions like, and where did it lead you?
It became more of an academic, kind of like a scholarly adventure for me.
Mhm.
I was absolutely fascinated with cultural anthropology, learning about, humanity and what things led to their spirituality, what have you. Um, and then I did both world religions and New Age religious movements of America. And that's when I learned a little bit more on what else there was. Um, I kind of was I pulled away from Wicca at the time because there were moments that it just seemed too organized for me. That was very similar to what I dealt with the church, and this wasn't the religion itself, but the people that that I was working with, and so it wasn't vibing with me, and so I decided to do my own thing because they were almost gatekeeping, and that's
Well, this is the 90s, early 2000s during
yes,
this. Yeah. I feel like that period, which was monumental in terms of getting witchcraft back on the map for many people, I think there was this real structure around who were you initiated by, how did that go? It was a lot of hierarchy similar to the church. And I think as we've I don't want to say we've evolved past that, but I think socially a lot of people are more in a shamanistic space now where they're kind of going more for what works, shamanistic mystical space where they're going for what works and what feels right for them instead of this very structured, like, I wear red socks on this day to do this ritual.
no, that's definitely a thing. Um, it was very much like that, and like you just mentioned, now it's not so much. It's a lot more open. It flows better. Um, I did more later after that with a Unitarian Universalist church. They had CUPS organization, which is the Covenant of Unitarian Universalist Pagans, and they
Ooh, I never heard of
they
that.
had different practices, different pagans practicing different traditions, and we all got together and we celebrated things together, and we shared each other's paths and stuff, and that's really when I developed more of the eclecticism.
You you're primarily Gardenarian right now, right? Like that's the perspective from which you practice, is that correct?
Somewhat, but right now I affiliate more of my works with like draconian magic, like dragon magic.
Okay, cool. Yeah, because I know that when there have been times where, and I'm not going to try to like pull you further out of the broom closet or anything like that, but I know there have been times where I've like asked you questions about certain holidays or the way you celebrate, and you're like, I can't talk about that exactly.
Yeah, there was just something because
And
there was a time where I wasn't addressing it because I didn't want to like step on someone else's toes or like make somebody mad type of thing. I was just reacting to like in the 90s and early 2000s, if I said the wrong thing I would be told no, it's this and that because it has to be like this or that or whatever, and it's just like, well, I'm sorry.
yeah, I'm totally fine with people being upset with me. I just block them in the comments, so it's fine. Um, also, I think that generally speaking, I mean, all forms of belief, whether they be spiritual or religious, free base, like free form or very structured, they're all just a human brain trying to comprehend something that the human brain is not meant to comprehend. It's like the thing that we are trying to describe is something that can only very tangentially be experienced in this form through non-dualistic experiences that is a chemical uh, reaction in your body through things like transcendental meditation, breath work, plant medicine, any deep prayer, any there are many things that can cause the sensation to happen in your body, but as soon as you try to describe it and point at it and go this is the thing, you're separate from it again. So there's no words that can really do the job of this is the thing that is underlying everything or this is the thing that is the current of our reality. And I think that ultimately all attempts at that are just putting a more digestible or nuanced mask on something that is ultimately everything.
Yeah, no, absolutely, I can see that.
Well, what do I know? That's my favorite way to preface a statement like that because, then it gives the trolls less to say. But, but so I'm interested to know more. and share to your comfort level, obviously, about draconian magic and how you came into knowing that and what was your introduction to that. Because I'm certified in Dragon Reiki, and that was kind of how came to know the current of dragon energy outside of Hermeticism and the Golden Dawn. Because in the Golden Dawn they talk about dragons, but I got to a deeper place with Reiki and Dragon Reiki before I even discovered their presence in the Golden Dawn. Quite honestly.
Mm. Yeah, no. So, for most of my life, I've been obsessed with like dinosaurs and dragons and stuff like that. And then when I learned that there was a thing in regards to there was dragon Wicca, and there was also just traditional like what is it, dragon paganism, like just their practices. There's the books that I have. It's like a Dance with Dragons or something, and they have different methods and spells and how to call quarters and stuff with dragons as if they were deities and spirits. And I've just been absolutely fascinated with that, and it's my main thing. It's not that I don't work with other deities, but they're like my primary, if you will. And it's just, and that's why I love reptiles as well, and I've used, um like I've well, not that I've used, I have included the use of my pets in work. So especially like my reptiles, when I had a ball python, when I had the blue iguana, I had rehomed all of them before leaving. So it's like I'm like sad now. Um, but
They were your familiars.
yeah, but I couldn't bring them with me.
Yeah, of course you worked with them. Oh, that's sad.
So and I worked very closely with them and the cats and the reptiles and even some of the fish that I had, because I had old world fish that were predatory in my fish tank that resembled mosasaurs, and I would do certain works with them, and it was just kind of like if I was working with like a leviathan or what have you, and that's basically what I did. So it was like connecting spiritually and then connecting with something of the physical realm, be it a dragon egg that I created, or be a reptile that I have in my person right now. The only reptile I have is my gecko. So I mean that's all I can do with right now. But that's pretty much what I did.
I like your dragon eggs, by the way. I've seen the ones you created, like in the group, and I love them. They're so cute.
Yes, it's tedious, but
Do you, do you use them in your magical workings, or how do you? Because the things that I've seen you make most in the group that we're in together is the dragon eggs and those kind of like the bottles, the shaker bottle sort of.
I make shimmer bottles, which is just it's basically a craft to with color and luster dust to basic, and it's themed, and it's to shake and it looks pretty. And then there's the oils that I've also added, the anointing oils that I've also added the luster dust in. And then of course the dragon eggs. And the dragon eggs, I make them in the potential of selling them, but at the same time I've kept them because it's like I've worked so close with them and they're a nice decoration. I put so much work into them.
So it starts out with the idea of I'm going to sell this, and then you're like, I like it too much. I'm keeping
Yeah,
it.
pretty much.
I love that. I love that so much. My friend Angela is like that with all her Halloween stuff. It's I love her too. Um, okay, so as somebody who found their way to a different path and specifically to a line of magic that is uh, draconic or more dragon based, can you recommend any books or something for someone who is either moving out of a traditional structure or is already maybe in a non traditional structure but wants to know more about dragons
Um, who's the artist?
and how
Not
to
the
use
artist, the
it
author.
in magical context?
So the books that I would recommend would be Dancing with Dragons. It's by DJ Conway, and there's a series. So it starts off, that's like the first one, and then there's like other ones after the fact. If you want to look into it, it's kind of like Wicca in the sense, but it's replacing the idea of the deities rather than them being from a specific pantheon. The spirits or the deities that you work with are dragons, and then there's names of dragons and which direction they're from, if you're calling the quarters, what they're affiliated with, and what have you. So that's something that I would recommend to look into if that's something someone wants to, look into in regards to their practice. But that's really the only one that I've come across that has been easy for me to navigate through.
And do you find that solitary and do you find that solitary practitionership is now your preferred method of practice, or do you still practice in a group that is like blended and stuff like that?
I still am open to practicing with a blended group, but I'm still solitary for the most part. I've never really taken into being in like a legitimate, like, or initiated into like a coven. Even when I was doing Wicca, I didn't have anyone that I could do it with anyway at the time, so it was a lot of solitary practicing anyway. But I found more comfort in doing the blended practices because we were all learning from each other and teaching each other different aspects and what have you. And it was basically, it was a nice, um, it was just a nice experience for all.
How do you how did you find working in a blended coven or a blended practitionership? How did that work? How was that structured? Because I find that intriguing.
It's funny that you should ask that because there were several instances where I was introduced to this place and I was not part of this place. This was the Unitarian Universalist Church. Okay. So I went there once because my mom was marrying two individuals there at the on the grounds there at the church, and so it was really nice. And we're like, oh, okay, bye. And we never visited it again. And then in college, I was part of the Gay Straight Alliance. And so we made something that was called Rainbow Cafe, which was for individuals to come together, have a safe space to um, interact. And there was music, there was food, you could buy snacks and stuff like that. And it was at this church. And that still didn't sink in. So Universe has guided me there twice. And I still wasn't. And then one day, it was after work. I went to the church and I was talking to the Reverend, because I became friends with her because of the Rainbow Cafe and because of Rocky Horror Picture Show. Um, she
We
introduced me.
love Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Yes, she introduced me to an individual that ran the Cups, which was, like I mentioned earlier, the Covenant Unitarian Universalist Pagans. And then once I talked with her, she told me what it was all about. I went to meetings. They hosted circles for the moons. They hosted circles for Sabbats. And it was from different perspectives and different traditions. And it's just, and then it was at that point. And then it occurred to me, I was just like, I've been here before and I never thought to look for this here. But yeah, and it just, there were classes and workshops and everything that was done there.
I love that. And so, would basically one person from a tradition be like, hold a ceremony one week, and then somebody else hold a ceremony a different week, and they would be like kind of not maybe markedly different, but kind of based in that tradition, and then you could participate in whatever way you felt comfortable with, or what was that type of a behavior like in
It
that
was
scenario?
essentially there was a rotation of individuals that would volunteer to take on a ceremony or a ritual, and that individual that would volunteer would get maybe like a couple other people to participate with them, and then they would agree on what they would work on depending on the tradition. So if one was Nordic, they would take some Norse pagan traditions and they would incorporate that, and then most of everyone would participate. But if those that were like part of the volunteer group were the ones that really like call the quarters, uh, cast a circle and stuff like that, and then the next circle would be someone else, and it would be from a different practice or tradition. So we had there was hoodoo, there was voodoo, there was Norse, there was Santeria, there was a lot of druidry, Um, there was my practice that I did a couple of what I called dragon circles. I even did a dragon circle when I traveled back to Florida not recently. It was like a couple of years ago. I hosted a dragon circle and I brought everyone together, and it was just an example of the things that we did. You know, everyone just came around and we all did a little bit, and it was great. Um, and it was just such a phenomenal learning experience when you're like around so many. It's like it's different, but it's similar. But it's just like, and you're like taking it all in.
That must have been really nice. And then it kind of, without trivializing any of it, it's like a little uh charcuterie board of spiritual practices. It's like a little bit of this and a little bit of that.
Yes, yes, that's a
I
good way
love
of putting
that.
that.
I love that because I think that the more we get to experience different forms of spiritual practices and spiritual beliefs, the more kind of nuanced it can become for us. And I think part of a way to practice various forms of spirituality without appropriation is through like appreciation and knowing where the thing comes from and how it was birthed and how it was handled by people that are native to that practice before potentially integrating it into your own pantheon, storyline, divinatory work. Are there any practices that you work with now that were maybe more in closed communities before you came into knowing them or working with them?
Mm, necessarily. I mean, there was like a couple of things that I could have gotten into in regards to like hoodoo and voodoo, but some of my friends were doing and participating, but they had their own way and path of doing it, and that wasn't where I was set to do. So I only like just kind of went through the surface of it. The one thing that ultimately um got my attention was the fact that I felt like I was neglecting my own tradition, my culturals and traditions of Puerto Rico. Because there's Espiritismo, but there's also the practices with the Taino, which are the indigenous of the Caribbean, and they did have a pantheon. They had spirits and zemis and what have you, and that's something that I'm still trying to. It's still, from what I understand, from what I've seen and found, is still a little closed. uh, but it's not like I can't like look further into it to get more information on it. Santeria is very closed in practice. There's only some things that they do that's open to the public, but after that, you have to be like an initiate and you have to be within a closed circle in order to do certain things with the individuals and what have you. And so I didn't go through that path, even though my aunt actually is she practiced that. So
I mean, I think out of the like the more closed paths that I have experienced, uh, let's say in a very not full arm's length, but like not full inner circle either, right? Like the kind of in between that we're talking about where you get to maybe like I was I was lucky enough to get to do a sweat lodge with Hopi people on native land in Arizona at one point. That was incredible. So I don't myself host sweat lodges traditionally, but I love that I got to be a part of that practice. And I also know that I work with deities from pantheons that are traditionally more closed. And I've loosely started to consider going on a deeper path with Santeria because I work pretty consistently with like five of the seven energies in that pantheon, and there's no real traditional Hellenistic Greek path, and I work with a lot of Greek um deities. Like I work with Hera, Hestia, Hecate, Hermes, Hades, Hephaestus. Like they're six of my primary deities are all Greek in nature, but I also work with other energies. And I think that I, in this moment, am teetering on diving deeper into Santeria just because the like I said, I work with five of the seven energies in that pantheon, and it's such a small pantheon that I think it would be really interesting to go on a deeper dive, even if after being initiated or taken in further, I ended up coming out and just reassessing again. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Just because I think that path seems very interesting to me, and I know that I inherently um practice things in a way that they practice. You know what I mean? For like from before, like I've never been initiated into that path. However, I work with several of those deities. They came to me. I did not seek them out, but they they showed themselves in my life in some capacity, and then I worked with their energy intuitively, and then I would check in with people who were practitioners of the path and initiates into the path, and I would say like this is what happened to me, this is what I was told to do, this is what I did, and they'd be like, yeah, that's correct. And so I was like, okay, so I'm on the path whether intentional or not. So I don't necessarily feel the need to sign myself over to any one path of belonging, but I do know that I like the work that I do with those deities, and I like how they like to be acknowledged. So that's kind of why I'm like, maybe I could float there for a little bit.
Hmm. Absolutely.
But also I plan on moving to Portugal later this year. So I'm also kind of like maybe there'll be some type of a magic there that I don't know of, and maybe I'll get like wrapped up in that, and that'll be fantastic and fun.
There might be, because there was even some information that my husband found, for example, on his culture and traditions. He discovered that there was like paganistic practices in Sicily that were like Fey related. So he has a book on that. So he has a book on Italian witchcraft. He has Sicilian practices, and I was like, oh, well, there you go. You found something. So we both found something. Myself with the Taino, him with the Sicilian practices.
I know that I'm not 100% sure, but I think that Italian witchcraft is referred to as stregaria,
Gregoria,
if
yes.
I'm correct. Yeah. And I is that what involves the Fae or no? Is that
There's a
something
different.
else?
It's a different practice, from what I understand. It's completely on the island, like when the church went there to like convert people, and who was it, the Crusaders or whatever. They didn't execute or do anything to them because they were not quote unquote worshiping the devil. They were worshiping fairies, and so they left them the hell alone.
Oh, they clearly weren't familiar with the Fae. Um, not that there's anything wrong with the Fae. I love them. They've always surrounded me. That's another tradition that I also am very curious about because I carry that energy with me everywhere, like Fae energy. And one of my good friends, actually, the very first time I met her, she was like, "Before you came here, everything in my house was like upside down. Everything got moved around, all this stuff." And I was like, "Oh yeah, I work with Fae spirits, not intentionally. They just kind of we live in each other's orbit, I think, and they will they like will go scout places apparently before I show up sometimes." And she was like, "Yeah, they moved everything in my house around." And it was like, "That's hilarious." And so she set up a fairy garden in her backyard now, and she was like, "They don't come inside anymore." Because I asked them to stay outside and I gave them a little house. And I was like, that works for them probably. They're probably very happy with that.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. I myself have built fairy gardens and stuff. At least I did. It was easier to do it in Florida than it is here because I'm trying to keep things alive in the cold. But figured it out with some plants, and things have been okay for the most part. So
There's also like you can do little terrariums, like little inside things for them.
Yeah, I have some that I need to play with a little bit. I have some like multicolored moss and stuff, but I need to like put other things in there so that like they have a place to go to and I can leave offerings at.
My room, the reason why I have this lovely screen behind me is because my room is such a mess because I'm not going to blame it on the Fae, but I want to blame it on the Fae. But it does look like just an explosion of like glitter and scarves and things. So that's why I have my lovely room divider because my Fae nature is wild. Um, s- so let's think. What other spiritual paths are you exploring right now? You said you were pulled to Taino. Is there any is there any community where you are right now for that that you've been able to find, or is that something where you feel like you'll have to visit Puerto Rico or something?
I honestly think I have to visit Puerto Rico for this. There's not many around here that know of or work with that here in the Pacific Northwest. Probably more in Florida, but again, not nearly as much as like in the Caribbean. So I'm part of a group online. Then they occasionally host or not post. They post material for people to review and read and look at, and it's like almost like it's literature in regards to the indigenous and like their practices and stuff like that. And so I check in on that from time to time. I only have one book on them. It's like a small picture book with like some things on it, and it's like it kind of tells a story in regards to them and how they practice and how the deities work, but it's not like it's almost I feel like it's like a kid's book. It's not enough to practice off of, I don't think.
And you you do divinatory work, right? You do like tarot.
Yes.
Do you what other divinatory practices do you participate in that are maybe more tied to that lineage, or do you is there a specific divinatory practice tied to that lineage that intrigues you?
That I'm aware of, I'm not entirely sure other than fire, like scrying into fire. And then like reading the coals and stuff like that. But um I do scrying in my crystal ball. I have a what is it, a cherry quartz sphere or whatever. It looks like a planet, and then I have a scrying mirror. I have pendulums, but when it comes to scrying into fire, I've done that before since I was much younger because I was always having fires like bonfires and stuff, and I was always gazing into the fire to see what I could see, and that just came natural to me. And I think it's interesting because it's something that that Dino would also work with. They would, anytime they'd have fires, they would look into fires or they would look at the signs that was in the coals.
I know that with Stregaria, like coffee, reading coffee grounds is a thing
Hmm.
typically for Italian spiritualists, and I'm Italian and Cuban. So I know that that's a thing. I've never really explored that very in depth, but it's something that I want to learn.
Yes.
That's something that I feel really passionate about wanting to learn at some point. And uh, I know that Cubans and Spanish people in general, they use shells for divination sometimes. And that's something that I've been more and more called to lately because I've been, not that I've been getting away from tarot altogether, but I think I'm getting ready to do a study on tarot, which you know about. So because I'm getting ready for that, I kind of wanted to take a break from that form of divination, kind of to cleanse my palate, if you will. And so, as I've been working with shells lately, I've been enjoying scrying and doing divinatory work with kind of fetishes and things that you can throw and divine that way, kind of like not like scattering bones, but very much like throwing shells and little crystals and gems that I keep in a bag now. And that's been a really fun way to expand my relationship to both tarot and divination in general because one of the charms that I have, some of the charms that I have are tarot cards. So sometimes I'll see a tarot card anyway in these little charms, and other times I'll just see bigger archetypal kind of pictures like a moon or a key or whatever. And then sometimes I have these kind of, hold on, I'll pull one out because I always have them not far away now. These kind of, I forget what kind of shells these are called, but I think they're not puka shells. They're cowrie shells. That's what these are. So I love using these as a form of divination lately, and the sound is very uh I don't want to say trance inducing, but it's very it relaxes me into the space. The more I like kind of I don't know why, but that's where I've been with m- my divinatory practices lately. And I think that's part of the fun of this kind of a spiritual path or an earth-based spiritual path is there's no real wrong way to do it. It's kind of this life of perpetual studenthood and always wanting to learn about refining your language and your way of communicating with the universe and the world around you. Because that's ultimately what it I for me that's what it is. It's a deep quest for knowledge and understanding about the universe itself and the nature of reality. What is what do you feel like your path brings to you in terms of the way you understand the world?
I'd have to agree with what you're saying in regards to being a student because you're like a student from the moment from like the very beginning and you just stay a student in it because you're always learning something no matter how much or how long you've done something you're always learning something um but something that I've gotten from it is kind of the way I experience and this might be like really deep philosophical type but I feel like we're the universe experiencing itself and so that's part of why like
100%.
that's why everything happens for like a reason and then like one person does something their way because that's how they do it. I do it my way because that's how I vibe with it, but I'm experiencing it as part of the universe experiencing itself.
So you brought up something really interesting and I'm very much a believer that we are all one thing, divinity, the universe, whatever, experiencing itself from a million different perspectives. So I think that before we choose to incarnate, I think that we kind of lay out everything that's going to happen in our life before it happens, which can be very looked at very fatalistically. It can be looked at a million different ways. But it always brings me to the question of how real is free will? And do we actually have free will? Or do we have the illusion of free will just so that we can participate in this illusion of separation enough?
Never thought of it that way. It makes sense. I mean,
Right?
it absolutely makes sense that it could be an illusion to allow us to be sectioned off per box or per individual to be its own. And like this grand consciousness is just like little stories. It's kind of like little data servers or whatever, like a computer.
Very much like a computer. I think that the I think playing with all of these ideas is my favorite part about spirituality and mysticism because ultimately they're questions that no one has an answer to, not a real groundable answer, but I love postulating on them and I love playing with the ideas kind of like it's slime or laffy taffy or something where you just kind of like pull your brain with these ideas and uh or ooh, what's that called? That stuff where you like yeah, it's taffy, I think, where you kind of like aerate the sugar and it becomes very like I love that. Dragon's
Yes.
beard. It's very that.
Yes.
And I just love playing with these concepts because ultimately, no matter what you believe, whether it's Catholicism, any of the Abrahamic faiths, any of the earth-based spiritual faiths, any of the philosophies like Buddhism or anything like that, it's they're all just unknowables. So I think I want to encourage people, or I want this podcast to encourage people to like color in whatever book feels best for you. Do it with respect. Find a path, and then color with whatever crayons you want. Use whatever pictures you want, but know that it's all kind of the same thing. And this is a little bit on what we were talking about a moment ago about like this universal consciousness. Whenever I meditate on it, I always see a sea anemone. And I think it's such a fun image to play with. And it's like there's this one thing at the base that connects all these tentacles, right? But the tentacles don't necessarily know that they're connected at the base. They're just kind of flowing through the water, experiencing it, thinking that they're different from the things around them. But really, it's all just the base.
Yeah.
And that's what I play with on a regular basis. Like there's nothing that really separates me from you, from the screen, from the camera, from the lights, to the phone, to the water bottle. Like it's all the thing. It's all the one thing. Just manifesting in a million different
Yeah.
perspectives.
I like that. A seen enemy.
Also, I've been playing with this idea lately because time is an illusion and a flat circle in many ways. I, I love Egypt and I love thinking about Egypt. You know how there was that thing a couple, like maybe a year or two ago, like how often do you think about the Roman Empire? Like for me, it would be like, how often do you think about Egypt? I think about Egypt almost daily. And I think that what if ancient Egypt is not actually the past, but it's the future? And what if we need to place it in the past in our collective consciousness so that we can reach the future version of the thing? Because if you think about it, like there's no logical way that the pyramids were made. And even by today's construction standards, there's no way that could have been done. So I'm like, what if that's actually both the past and the future for us? But we needed to place it in the illusion of the past in order for it to function in the future.
Yeah. That would not
Fun
surprise. It
thoughts
would
again.
not surprise me, honestly, because time itself is an illusion. It's a construct for us to measure things, and that's how we that's how we interpret it. But
I also said to my sister the other day, the only reason that we participate in time is because the vessels that we inhabit have an expiration date. Otherwise, time is completely irrelevant.
yes.
My sister was like, the vessels have an expiration date. And I was like, yeah, that's right. That's correct.
And did I stutter?
So, like I said, I like to keep these conversations around an hour, and we're coming up on that now. So, is there anything that you want to close us out with thought wise?
Oh, I can't think of anything, honestly. Do what you can and be kind to others. You don't know what anyone else
We
is
love it.
going. You
Yeah.
don't know what anyone else is going through.
And if somebody wanted to get in touch with you and you want to put that information out there, you are welcome to do that now as well, if you feel so inclined. And if not, that's fine
I
too.
mean, they can reach me on Instagram. That's mystic underscore Manny underscore.
We love it. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to turn off the camera and then say goodbye to you separately, but just in the meantime, give everyone a wave. Bye.